Revenge is a dish best served with a sword on the battlefield of the gates of hell. The Northman was written and directed by Robert Eggers, whose previous work include The Witch and The Lighthouse, two terrific movies you should absolutely check out as soon as possible. And it was also written by an Icelandic man, and I'm pretty certain I'm going to butcher this name, Sjon, S-J-O-N. Really certain I got nowhere near pronouncing that correctly. He's wrote other Icelandic-themed movies. Obviously, it'd be a bit weird if he tried to write anything other than in the language he understands. The two most famous ones for, big audiences, Dancer in the Dark with Bjork, who has a cameo in this, and also Lamb, a terrific offering from A24 with Noomi Rapace, I think that's how you say it, Rapace, and a lot of weird stuff and beautiful cinematography, but you can check out my review of Lamb if you really want to find out how I felt about that. This is about the Northman. And boy, Robert Eggers went all out with this. The cast was fucking terrific and loaded. Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Carl Bang, Ethan Hawke, the gorgeous goddess herself, Anya Taylor-Joy. My fucking goodness, she's great. Willem Dafoe, it is most Willem Dafoe. Bjork, as I mentioned, and Ingar Sørgsson from Lamb. One of the few actors in Lamb. Lamb had a very small cast. Enough about Lamb. This is about the Northman that starts in 895 AD if man was still a flea and goes through the early 900s. So, yeah, a bit back in the past. So there were no cell phones, no electricity, and you just decided to really bash each other's brains in if you wanted to take over somebody's land. It's Viking-themed, Norse-themed, with a whole bunch of swords and magic and blood and craziness. And how far should I go in the review before I say I fucking love this? I was enjoying every goddamn minute of it. It pulls no goddamn punches. If you are not ready to see at times obscene amount of violence, then you are probably not going to enjoy this. Now, I will say Alexander Skarsgård fucking kills it. Now, there are some terrific character names here. There's Osiris, played by Bjork. There's He-Witch, played by Ingar. There's Hymir the Fool. I'm pretty certain I'm probably going to screw up some of these. I apologize because, it's Icelandic and Norse themed. Olga of the Birch Forest. Again, the aforementioned gorgeous goddess Anya Taylor-Joy. I've loved her I liked her in The Witch. She was great, and you could tell she was going to be good. And then from Emma to Last Night in Soho and other stuff, she has just gone from strength to strength to strength. I still need to catch up on the Queen's Gambit at some point. And then there's Almleth, played by Alexander Skarsgård. There's Queen Gudrun, played by Nicole Kidman. There's Fjolnir the Brotherless, played by Mr. Bang. And the best character name of all for Ethan Hawke of all people, King Arvandel Warraven. That is a fucking tremendous name that was absolutely wasted on a not very good actor like Ethan Hawke. I've never really cared for Ethan Hawke, seriously. I kind of loathe seeing him in any movie because I don't really find him all that good. But in this movie, we have a kingdom that is besieged by betrayal. And Almleth is the only one that can exact revenge. And he goes on this quest that takes years and years and years for him to be able to do that. And he has to get close to the person that took his kingdom. They killed his father and took his kingdom. So the thing about a movie like this is it's not exactly reinventing the wheel. Medieval movies of this variety, actually medieval movies in general, that genre, it's very hit and miss to me. Willow, Princess Bride, stuff like that. Lady Hawk was pretty good. I praised The Last Duel, but I also kind of critiqued it a little bit for maybe being a little bit too repetitive, though I recognize why some people really, really liked it, and I do recognize how great the talent was, despite the fact Ben Affleck was in it. I think there were also times where the movie repeated itself. This movie, thankfully, is pretty goddamn straightforward. Now, it does prove that revenge is all-consuming. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Absolute anger corrupts absolutely. And this movie was certainly revenge-fueled. And you get to understand just how much everybody went through. You could tell that each actor, the extras and everything, given the settings that they did, from Iceland to other areas, they went through a lot. This was a $60 to $70 million budgeted movie, which is a huge, huge increase from The Witch. The Witch was $4 million. I think The Lighthouse was 10 or 11 million. And they had small cast. Well, especially The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse only had 3 fucking people in it. But this one has a huge cast. It's Basically, like if somebody tried to do something similar to Gladiator, except maybe not go with somebody that's a terrific actor but as much of a problem person like Russell Crowe. I have Gladiator, and we'll obviously retro review that at some point. And I'm interested to see how the sequel's going to be for some reason. But The Northman was gritty, violent, and very, very well shot. The cinematography is fucking beautiful. The writing's great. There are subtitles for the Icelandic, the Norse stuff, and it really is nice that they put those subtitles there. I mean, there were times that other people were speaking other foreign languages that I didn't really understand. Olga was obviously speaking some kind of Russian or Slovakian or whatever type language, and you couldn't quite understand it, but mostly everybody spoke English, except there were a few points where there were a few Viking musical numbers I didn't necessarily expect. They were all around campfires and everything, and they were all getting just into their war cries and everything and getting all bloody. And man, when they do these battles are fucking epic, but also the way they were done. They were beautifully shot. They were gritty. Like, gritty is the best way to describe this, and not in a bad way. Not like we're just going to cover people in dirt to the point that, that way that looks good. No, you actually have to have some talent behind it. Robert Eggers is a fucking terrific director. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next, because The Witch was slow burn horror. The Lighthouse was psychological horror. This, medieval Viking Norse mythology with just great cinematography, some, a few layers on top of it. Obviously, revenge is never exactly cut and dry. Some people are so driven they can't see the forest through the trees. And it turns out that, maybe there's some stuff that somebody didn't know and they let revenge drive them too far forward. And maybe he was wrong all along, or was he? We have to find out in the spoiler section, which will be coming up soon. But Alexander Skarsgard fucking steals the show here. I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy, whenever she's on screen, you can't help but love her. Nicole Kidman, by the way, still great after a number of years. I mean, she's been in acting for what? About 40 years? Or close to it, 30-something. She's been in for a while. And Ethan Hawke, for what it's worth, he's fine in this. Willem Dafoe is most Willem Dafoe. Like, they tend to, they advertise a whole lot of people being in it, and actually there's only a few main characters in this, and some are just written off instantly. But it goes from time, years to years and everything, and tells a story of how Amleth was bound and determined to have his revenge, get revenge on his father's killer. And there is a bit of a love story that sprouts up. With who? I don't think it really should be too much of a shock, given who I've been talking about, but it does have just this great quality about where it is fucking phenomenal looking. It's a gorgeous looking movie. Even when people are covered in dirt, they're covered like doing this weird kind of cricket type rugby game where they're hitting a giant ball into like some posts at one point in the movie. Even that kind of stuff. The costume design is really good. But everything about this is just gorgeous. But that violence, if you ain't ready for a dose of animal violence, a healthy, sometimes unhealthy dosage of massive violence on battlefields and just villages being burned and just a whole bunch of blood, you are not going to enjoy this. But if you are ready for that, you are absolutely going to love this. Now, I will say that if you don't want to see this in theaters and want to wait for it on streaming, that's totally understandable. When I saw it just a bit ago, there were 11 people in there, including me. I don't anticipate this movie's going to do hugely well, but I think it will gain more of a following when it comes out on streaming. I think it will end up making its money back. This is fucking phenomenal. A great goddamn movie. I had a great time, and a lot of it flew by. I have a couple issues. I think there was a little bit of padding that maybe didn't need to happen. I think you could have cut this down by 15 minutes. I think it was well told. It was very well told. But he could have cut a couple things out. But that's a minor quibble. I really had a lot of fun. I'd say 95 whatever percent of this movie. I was having a blast. There were a couple times where, okay, you could have cut it. But it is what it is. It's still a great fucking story. It's simple, yet complex at the same time. You get to find out more layers about the characters. Robert Eggers knocked it out of the fucking park. So, I am going to get into spoilers, but if you do want to venture out in the theaters and watch something, this is very enjoyable. I mean, make sure you if you have a drink, make sure you got a big bladder so you don't take a break too often during this. But it's really, really good. Check it out. But now we're going to get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. Okay, so if you're still here, we're in spoilers. Okay, so Ethan Hawke is the king, and War Raven. That is a great goddamn name. He comes back. He's got his queen, Nicole Kidman, and there's a young Amleth, and then there's a brother, Fjolnir. Sorry, I mean, again, Icelandic and Norse and all that stuff and everything. It's getting a bit hard to pronounce some of this stuff by calls bang. He ends up killing his brother to take over the kingdom. That angers Amleth, who it vows revenge. There's this one point just before that where Amleth and his father are doing this weird kind of like war cry thing. They're like, getting to be they're enhancing their animal spirit, investing in it and everything, and getting to where they'll get into battle and they'll just tear people apart. And Willem Dafoe, of course, being the most. Why they needed a shirtless Willem Dafoe, I don't know, but I guess it sort of made sense for the movie. But it's like, I will, like get in and do this. It was a really, really weird thing, but it was really kind of cool. Special effects are very nice. And then Ethan Hawke dies. Hooray, that movie goes up a little bit for me, because again, I don't like Ethan Hawke. But it leads to revenge, where Amleth sees his mother being taken away by his uncle, and he's all upset. He needs to have his revenge. But he's a young boy. Years and years and years go by. It says years later, there's a lot of chapter breaks and everything. And he's part of this team of these barbarians, these Vikings, that just destroy villages. They are in pillage. I'm not going to say the actual word. And at one point, he's like so vicious, he bites the guy's neck. And just a lot of destruction and whatever. And then he finds out information. He talks to Cirrus, played by Bjork, and he finds out that, the place he needs to go to is in Iceland to find the person that killed his father. And it turns out the kingdom was actually taken away from his uncle, taken away somehow. And now he's living on a simple farm and everything with his queen, aka Amleth's mother. And then he forms a bond with Olga of the Birch Forest and rises up kind of being, a slave on this farm. And then finds out that he needs to go to this particular area in this mountain and get a sword that was forged from this iron in the depths of the earth to exact his revenge. And only he can free it. Only one who has the reason to pick up the sword can hold it. It's sword and the Icelandic stone, essentially. Really should have called it that, but that would have been a bit weird. He gets out. There's actually this cool battle with this ancient soldier that's holding the goddamn thing. It's not like in Indiana Jones 3. It's not like that, but he battles it almost very Dark Souls-like. For any Dark Souls fans out there, you might enjoy that part. And then he decides he's going to torture his uncle, and various people are going to get killed. At one point, there are these bodies just spread, killed and spread on this cabin. And his uncle has 2 heirs that the queen has bore. And then he ends up killing one of them. He forms this relationship with Olga. She ends up being pregnant, which we find out a little bit later. And through all this, he's tortured because he wants to be with her, but he has to exact his revenge. He has to. It's been his only driving force, but he's also got this love. And how could you not love Anya Taylor-Joy? What happens is, basically by the end of it, he is found out, and he escapes with Olga, but decides he needs to take his revenge to save his unborn children and Olga. So he goes and takes his revenge after being confronted by his mother, and his mother basically saying that I was the one that sent your uncle to kill your father because your father wasn't a good person. He didn't love me. Your uncle loves me. So his revenge all went up in smoke, but he still wants to avenge his father, and it turns out his mother's a bitch, or maybe he just feels he's been lied to and he wants to kill, because all he's done is kill and fuck Anya Taylor-Joy. Again, good for him. But we get this climactic battle after Nicole Kidman And the youngest son are killed because the oldest son had his heart stabbed out, which was kind of funny, and at least to me. And then there's this volcano erupting because Iceland, and him and his uncle have a battle. Naked, by the way, so they have to really darken that shit so you don't see any Viking dick flopping around. And then what happens is they have this battle. He gets cut, the uncle gets cut, and eventually he cuts his head off, but he gets a sword through the heart, and that's it. He sees a vision of Olga with the kids. We're safe. Take your passage into the next life. And he does. And that's it. There's obviously more spoilers. There's more stuff I could peel back and everything. But I would like you guys to find out more about that as you see it. But this movie, fucking terrific. Phenomenal. I really, really enjoy. Yes, of course, there were the padding issues I talked about. But I'm going to say A+. I really had a lot of fun watching The Northman. Probably the most conventional of Robert Eggers' movies. But still fucking great. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.